Welcome back to GEMS Podcast. I am your host, Genesis Amaris Kemp, and with me today is Tom Antion. And here's a bit about Tom. He has never had a job. He's an internet multimillionaire guy next door and founder of the only licensed dedicated internet marketing school in the country. He's the subject of a Hollywood documentary, The American Entrepreneur, premiering this summer in 2022. And without further ado, we're going to get into small businesses. If you're eager to know how to make your hobbies legitimately tax deductible, as well as how to scale up, Tom is your guy. So without further ado, welcome Tom Antion to GEMS Podcast.
Hey, Genesis. I didn't realize I was going to be on with someone so unique like you, and I did a little research, and I want to tell you about it. Did you realize that only 1 out of 479 baby girls have the name Genesis?
No, I did not know that.
And it's I'll tell you what, it's 1 out of 6,660 baby boys have the name Genesis too. So what that means is that if you met 10,000 people in your life, over the course of your life, you would have a 99.996 probability of meeting at least one girl and a 53% chance of meeting one boy with the name Genesis. So I checked you out.
That is definitely a cool fun fact, and people you'll be surprised, they don't even know how to say Genesis. One person called me genius, and I was like, oh, okay.
Well, that's not the worst thing you can be called. They maybe thought you were the band. I thought I was doing an interview with the band.
So Tom, let's peel back the onion layers here. I want to know, how did you get your start in entrepreneurship? Because I know you've never had a job, and that's incredible because you don't find too many people that's never worked for somebody.
Well, my dad came on a cattle boat from Syria back in the early 1900s, and he became an entrepreneur. He put the first electric light bulb in Carnegie, Pennsylvania at 10 years old. And at 13 years old, he had his own electrical contracting firm. Okay, so as I grew up, that's all I saw was entrepreneurship. And I was 10 years old doing side hustles. And I sold my first used car at 15 years old, and I didn't even have a driver's permit. And so I've always been entrepreneurial. And then I ended up going to college on a football scholarship. I went to a major college, and I was reading a book by William Nickerson called "How I Turned $1,000 into $1 million in Real Estate." And I'm in college, second, third year in college, and I said, "Oh, I could do that, and I could figure that out." And so by the time I graduated college, I owned 5 apartment buildings and a hotel.
Wow, that's impressive.
Starting with nothing. I wasn't any silver spoon. I mean, we had a nice family, but there was no, super rich people, financing me. So your knowledge is very valuable in life. So the more knowledge you can get, the more valuable you can be, and make take care of your family and make a lot of money.
So then, question there, was it only your dad that was in entrepreneurship, or was your mom involved in it as well, or was she around?
She was. Well, remember, this is the old days. I'm so far over the hill, I can't remember going up the hill. So you're talking to an old guy here. So she was a stay-at-home mom, and I was the baby of 6 boys, and many of them had entrepreneurial tendencies, but I was probably the most. And it was a small town. We had 500 people in my hometown. Still to this day is only 500 people, and we lived in the suburbs. So we lived in the sticks. So you had to make your way. There was no jobs, being thrown around, easy to get a job. So you figured out how to do it yourself.
Okay, wonderful. And I'm glad that, your dad was a big influence on you, because a lot of people don't have people in their families that are entrepreneurs, and the way that some people are brought up, or a lot of people, is like, oh, you go to school, you get a degree, you get a good job, and they teach you how to be an employee, but they never teach you how to be that successful business owner and how to step outside the box and really break those glass ceilings. So I'm so glad that you're here to educate the audience on some of the things that made you successful. And I want to segue into one of your popular topics have been how to make your hobbies legitimately tax deductible. And I find out a lot of people, they really don't know how to save money or how to cut corners legally when it comes to taxes. So can you walk us through what that looked like for you and how you help others do the same?
Yeah. So I'm based in the United States, but any regular country has the same kind of rules. If you're in business, you can get tax deductions for the things you buy, but no country says you can't enjoy what business you're in. And so there's loads of things like, for instance, I have the dubious distinction of being the largest person ever to create and star in a tennis training video. It's called fatsotennis.com because the people at my club are not Rafael Nadal or Roger Federer. It's all big fat butts like me trying to beat the younger guys. But the tennis is expensive. It's $200 for a racket, and you got to have a PhD to pick the strings for the racket and the ball machines and all this stuff. So I thought I'll create a inexpensive website. So you can create a world-class website nowadays. WordPress site is what we use, with a responsive theme. Responsive means it looks good on a cell phone and tablet, for $150. And then I interviewed tennis coaches and I sold a tennis DVD. And so the things that I used along that way to make this blog on tennis are tax deductible. So my hobby became tax deductible. Most families just pay through the nose for all their family interests and their kids' interest in soccer, and it all costs a lot of money. So let's say you're a soccer mom or dad or both, and you go and interview a bunch of high school soccer coaches, and you make an ebook that costs absolutely nothing to create. A Word document converted to PDF and then converted to Kindle costs nothing. And now you can take off the travel to your soccer games and the clothes and the balls and the nets and all the stuff that's involved in soccer. Same with golf or archery or anything basically that you're interested in as a hobby. That's the method. And you don't have to create a product. You can do what's called an affiliate product. So someone else created the product and you just promote it on your tennis blog or your archery, whatever it is. And then if somebody buys it, you get a commission. Well, that's money, that's revenue coming in. And so that makes your stuff tax deductible. Now you got to bring in some money because after a while, the IRS will call it a hobby. So as long as you're legitimately bringing in money, nobody says you have to be good at it or make a lot of money, but you do have to bring in some money. But that's the basic method, and I've helped thousands of families be able to enjoy their life better and have more money to do it because of this simple method.
And thanks for sharing that simple method. I'm definitely going to have to try that. So if I take bits and pieces of my podcast and put it into an ebook and then sell it, then I get that passive income coming in.
Yes, you get the income from the book, but that allows you to take off the expenses for doing the podcast. So the hosting and all the computer stuff, at least a portion of it. Like for instance, my vehicles. Well, they know that a lot of that is personal. So we take a percentage of the vehicle off for tax purposes, which is perfectly legitimate because they know you're going to go to the grocery store and this and that. But as long as everything you do is reasonable, you won't have any trouble with this stuff because it's the way it is. It's pro business in our country and most real countries. I don't want to say developing because that means like third world countries, but regular countries in the West and the East and every place else, it's the same deal. You can get a deduction, legitimate deductions for the business expenses.
So then question with the ebooks, when you're doing the ebooks, do you have to necessarily have that ISBN number for the ebook? And do you pay for that?
You don't have to have an ISBN number at all. And in some cases, it's a detriment to have it. You think, oh, I look more legitimate if I have an ISBN number. But here's the deal. If you don't sell loads and loads of the books, then the people, the major publishers can see how many books were sold under a certain ISBN number, and it looks like you're terrible. So if you wanted to get a big publisher, they would turn you down because you sold it looks like you sold almost nothing of the ebooks. Now, when you go to Amazon Kindle, they give you an ASIN number, Amazon Standard Information Number. So you don't need an ISBN for Amazon Kindle. And I wouldn't waste my time on any other but Amazon Kindle, because they have a program where they will give away, as long as you don't sell your ebook anywhere else, they will give away your book for 5 days out of every 90. Now you say, well, how are you going to make any money that way? Well, let me tell you, I have one ebook that's a free ebook, free. It's brought in, as of this morning, $3.68 million. And you say, well, that sounds like BS, Tom. Come on. Well, let me explain how that works, and then I'll tell you why it's worthwhile to deal with only Amazon. So the way it works is, I just mentioned earlier, Genesis, a affiliate program where you recommend somebody else's product, and if somebody buys it, you get a commission, okay? But the next level of that is called a residual affiliate program. So that means I recommend somebody's product or service, and as long as the person I recommended it to keeps using it, I keep getting paid. So I've had some things that I recommended 18 years ago, and I'm still getting paid today for it, because they keep, could be hosting, or could be a shopping cart service, or something that they use over and over and over. It could be a membership site, could be supplements, vitamins and stuff, whatever it is, I keep getting paid. So that's called a residual affiliate program. So I want to give that book away as much as possible, because I teach them how to do something, and they can't do it unless they go buy this tool that I'm recommending. And that's where the residual kicks in. So I wrote this book in 4 hours at a layover at McCarran Airport in Las Vegas. And like I said, so far it's brought in $3.68 million, and every month from $5,000 to $15,000. I could have quit years ago and still had several $100,000 coming in. So this is things that are available to you if somebody would just teach you and show them to you. But that's the turn. And then the reason I want to use Amazon only is because they have way more reach than I'll ever have. Hundreds of millions of customers a day. And they gave away 2,500 copies of this book in 5 days. I can't do that. And so each one of those persons that got the book, any one of them, I could make $600 to $720 a year from. I don't want the 35 cents I'd get for the crappy book. I want the $600 a year on in perpetuity. So that's the basic method, is a residual affiliate program.
That's amazing. And that's impressive that you've made that amount of money. And with the residual affiliate program, do you have to subscribe to it? Do you have to be a certain level at Amazon in order for that to kick in? And the reason why I'm asking is for any authors out there listening, I'm with you. I'm an author as well. My book is titled Chocolate Drop in Corporate America, From the Pit to the Palace. And I went through a publishing house because it was my first book. I didn't know any better. But then I have to do all the marketing for my book, and she still gets a percentage of it. So if I wanted to take the second edition of my book and just, chunk out the Kindle version using Amazon, like you mentioned, Tom, because I want to apply what we're talking about here so people kind of get it. So I'll use myself as an example. So if I want to take that book, drive it over to Amazon for the second edition as an ebook, then I will start to get paid for that. And do you necessarily have to let your publisher know? Because there's some authors who want to break up with their publishers, but they're legally binded by a contract, but they may have just a hard copy, but not the Kindle version. And they want to maximize their reach, but also, keep some of the money in-house, especially if they're doing all the work.
Well, that was the first question I was going to ask you. What does your contract say? Because they might have you, and most publishers know that most authors don't know what they're doing, and they're going to write the contract all in their favor. And if you don't have an agent or a publishing attorney, then and you sign it, you're stuck, because they'll sue you for it, and so you don't have the rights to it. So you have to check your contract. So the big lesson here is don't get into one of those contracts. If you do get into one, make sure it's fair for both people. And then that means usually you need an agent or at least a publishing attorney. But if you made an entirely different ebook, which is not that hard, then you know better now not to do that. And I highly recommend a book. The guy has passed away now, but it's every product I have has a piece of him in it. It's called The Self-Publishing Manual by Dan Poynter, Poynter. And he had like 20 editions out over the past 30 years, but even the latest edition will really open your eyes to what you need to do to publish your own book. And nowadays there's a little bit of expense, but with print on demand, you don't have to have a garage full of books unless you know you can sell them at speaking engagements and so forth. You can, the book doesn't exist until somebody buys it, then they print it and ship it for you. So, but you got to be real careful with the legal end of everything. I call it like going to the bathroom. The job's not done until the paperwork is finished.
So definitely lots of learnings here. And yes, I have definitely learned my lesson, especially when you're walking into something new for the first time. Do your due diligence. Before I did sign the contract, I did have a friend of mine that's an attorney look it over. But of course, books aren't her specialty, but she knew
Right.
enough to kind of guide me. But now that I'm thinking about really doing an ebook or a workbook to complement my book, I definitely wanted to ask that question because I think that it would bring some knowledge to our audience as well as our viewers, Tom. And you definitely have, years of experience.
Yeah, I've got 25 books out too, and only one major publisher, and that was the biggest pain in the neck of all. And what's crazy about it was, I'm an internet guy, so I write an internet book. It was from the time I submitted it, it was 18 months till it hit the shelf. Well, the kinds of changes that happen in 18 months online. So it was obsolete before it went on sale, So if I'd have just kept it in house, now they gave me a big advance, but that's hard to get nowadays. So if I would have done it myself, it'd have been out in a month and sold just as many, and I'd have got all the money. And they nickeled and dimed me to death. They made me pay for the indexing. They made me pay for the graphics out of my advance. So that was I did it because I teach a lot of this stuff and I want to have the real experience, but I can't. In good faith, unless you're a super celebrity, suggest trying to get a major publisher. You could have the book out by then and making money and get it all yourself in the time it takes just to land a publisher. And the publisher won't even want you unless you can prove you can sell 20,000 books. So you're better off doing it yourself.
Absolutely. So the lesson here for anyone going down the authorship path is to avoid publishers, learn how to self-publish and do it yourself. Tom mentioned a great book by Dan Poynter, so make sure you go out and grab that book. And now, Tom, I want to switch gears to kind of find out, why do they W the guy next door? What does that mean to you, and what does that mean to your audience?
Well, the guy next door is because if you walk down the street with me, you don't know my financial success. I'm a guy that's going to open the door for you. Came from a small town. We had common sense. I swear I could take any farmer from the little town I grew up in and put him in any government position and they'd make better decisions because they got common sense, and they understand consequences of making the wrong decision because the crops will fail. So and basically I'm just down to earth, and I go out and work and cut wood with tools, and my dad taught me how to do things. That's one thing about the younger generation. They can't do anything. They can't change a tire. They can't. And so being able to do stuff, I'm not sure about this because I'm way out of this generation, but I heard millennial women can't find guys to marry. Now they find guys that to go shopping with or something, but the guys can't do anything, and there's no security out there. So all these millennial women can't find husbands. So I don't know. What do I know about it? I'm not married myself. People ask me, how come you're not married? I said, I never made the same mistake once.
So I'll answer that for some millennial women. So I'm a millennial woman, but my husband is not a millennial man. So my husband and I have a 8-year gap. And we dated for three years before we pulled the plug and decided to get married. And I've always dated a little bit older. So one of the things that I did whenever I met my husband now, when we were dating, it's like when we hit that 3-year mark, I pretty much was like just bold with him. And I told him, boys shack and men build homes. Which one are you trying to do? Because by 3 years, you should already know. And so if he were on this live, he would tell you, she forced me to marry her. And I'm like, no, I did not. I just gave you a statement. And I told you, which one are you going to choose? Because I didn't want to waste time, because I feel like you already spent enough time with somebody to know that if you want to solidify the relationship or etc. So for some of the millennial women, some of the problems I feel like they have is that some of the men that they're getting with, some of them settle and they try to make excuses for that man because they don't want to lose the relationship. But if you put some requirements and have your non-negotiables versus your negotiables, I think it will cause that man to step up to the plate. And it also depends on how he was raised, because some of the mothers out here, they baby their boys or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then there are also some guys who come from, a single parent household. So they don't normally see both dynamics. But I definitely can't speak to the full spectrum of that statement, because I was fortunate to have both my mom and dad in my life up until recently. My dad passed in November of 2020. But I had them all throughout my life, and I know how to change a tire somewhat with the help of my dad, and try to be self-sufficient for myself. And plus, I worked in a male-dominated industry for 12 years, which was oil and gas. So you definitely have to have tough skin working with oil and gas.
Well, here's why nobody asks me for relationship advice, Genesis. So I've been dating my girlfriend for 20 years, and you got to get to know somebody. So I got the key to longevity, though. You date him for a long time, and then you live at least 3 hours away, and you see him like clockwork every 6 months. That's why nobody asks me for relationship advice.
That is crazy. Now that we got that little sidebar out the way, I want to switch gears into your documentary that Hollywood is making on you, The American Entrepreneur. How do you feel about being called the American Entrepreneur? And when you found out that there was going to be a documentary on Tom Antion, were you blown away, or what came to your mind? What was your excitement level like?
Actually, the first thing that came to my mind is, I thought you had to be dead to have a documentary about you. And I said, oh man, they must see something. I'm going to be dead soon. They want to get this on film. I was very surprised. The way it came about is the lady that got me starting in the professional speaking industry her name was Dottie Walters. She was the first woman that was actually teaching sales techniques to sell to women. This is a long time ago. And she got me started in the speaking industry. And then when she passed away, I was asked to do her, she called me her right coast son. She lived in Glendora, California. And so they asked me to speak at her memorial. And so I spoke there. And then I met this a lady that was in the crowd who was a documentary producer in Hollywood and has 40 now documentaries of all kinds of, Olympic athletes and everybody. And I met her for 2 minutes and that was it. Nice to meet you. How you doing? And then a couple years later, she started following me. And then she approached me about it a couple years later. And I said, well, sure. I don't think I'm dead. I'm pinching myself. So I said, sure. And she asked me for a bunch of pictures and information of people I've helped. And, so that was how it came about. And now it's been in the works for several years because they keep telling me, that they're dealing with Netflix and they're trying to do this, that, and the other. And so I don't know for sure the date that's coming out, but hopefully this summer.
So what are some of the things that we could learn more about in this documentary? Do you know?
Oh, yeah, I got plenty of things. Yeah. Well, first of all, for those of you watching, they can see behind me, there's a poster and there's a little baby and a pillow on it. So we were talking about education earlier. So my dad only went to the second grade, but he was the smartest guy I ever knew. When I actually saw him sit down and read, when he retired, the entire World Book Encyclopedia. Now, a lot of the people listening are too young to even know that one exists, but it was 26 volumes of books, plus the supplements. He read the whole thing. And so when he passed away, I had a big seminar in Los Angeles and everybody signed the sign. It was a leadership event based on his teachings. And so one of the things he taught me was to give before you get. And this led to the biggest break in my entire career. So my dad taught me give before you get. So when I was reading that book in college about real estate, it was telling me how to do it. And I bought the apartment buildings, but then I was charging more to the students than I was paying in rent. So I lived in somebody else's house. And at the end of the semester, well, the guy would come over and he'd say, I got to put some gutters on the house, Tom. Okay, let me help. I'd say, let me help you. But you teach me what we're doing. Okay. And so at the end of the semester, this guy, his name is Frank Biafora, he said, I want to talk to you, Tom. And I'm thinking, what do we do? He says, in 25 years, I have been renting students in this town. Not once, ever has one of the kids offered to help me do it, let alone ask me to teach them what I was doing. He said, I own a hotel. I want to retire and go to Florida, and I own a hotel about 20 minutes here in another town. I want you to have it. I said, whoa, yeah. He says, yeah. He says, now, if you don't know anything about real estate, he says, yeah, if you can come up with the first mortgage, I will hold back the second mortgage, which means it's a no money down deal long before the book No Money Down came out. And he says, I'll teach you to run it. And so the first lesson is give before you get. I was given help and learning, and I was appreciated for that by this guy coming offer me a hotel. And the second lesson is persistence. So I went to 50 different lending institutions because, they were shooing me away like, yeah, you got a couple little apartments, but a hotel, yeah, you're crazy, get lost, little kid. That's what they're doing to me. I'm still in college, right? And so took me 50 tries and I landed the first mortgage. He held back the second mortgage. I went down once a week to pick up the rent checks and make any minor repairs. I was making $65,000 a year just off of that building in the 70s. This is in the 1970s. So that's 150,000 today. And the city ended up buying it for several $100,000. So I made about $500,000 just because I was persistent and I gave before I get. So you can get breaks like crazy nowadays. And the bar is so low now. If you just give a little bit, you're way ahead of your competition. All right. So that's what I try to tell the youth out there. the people with the money, the older people, they're kind of a little disgruntled with the younger entitled generation. And if you just rise above that, they'll give you every kind of break you can imagine. So that's my little lesson there: persistence and give before you get.
That's amazing. And now, as we wind down, Tom, I want you to leave the listeners as well as the viewers with either one or two gems. The first gem, it could be something that either educates, inspires, and motivate, or the second one could be a lifestyle gem, something to help them carry with them through the lifelong journey, because I always believe that knowledge is power and we should always be learning.
Well, so I'll tie those two together. If you would like to have what we call a lifestyle business that you can operate from anywhere and is extremely high profit, you've got to get into the digital product revolution. And it's not that it's new. I've been selling digital products for 22 years, which is eBooks and online courses and so forth, because they're 97% profit. If you're halfway decent with your computer, it costs nothing to create, and you can get as much money or more money than for regular printed products. So I love the people, the engineers that create all this technology. But if you're my student, I'm not putting you into that, because a computer is maybe 5% profit, where an ebook is 97% profit with no risk. It's not gonna break down on people, So get into the digital revolution, and then you can have any lifestyle you want. You can, you hear about the Starbucks and the coffee shop millionaires, and this is real, but you have to take the first step. Somebody said one time, when you take the first step, somehow the solutions appear. And so, if I'm part of the solution, great. You're part of the solution for sure. And so digital marketing, and create the lifestyle you want, and don't be in traffic. Like my podcast is Screw the Commute, which is you're going to be on soon. And it's based on the fact I never had a job. And my resume looks like kind of BS, because you can live 2 or 3 lives if you're not stuck in traffic all day, making other people rich. So digital revolution, and make your own lifestyle.
Amazing. And Tom, how can our listeners and viewers connect with you via your website, and where do you hang out on social media?
Well, I heard one of your folks on, I think they were talking about social media. So I look pitiful on social media, because social media to me is a necessary evil to get people off of social media onto an email list. I have over 100,000 subscribers, and I can reach them. And if Mark Zuckerberg decides he doesn't like me, it's like, too bad. I don't care. I got 100,000 subscribers. So, but I do have a gift for everybody. And this is mostly for business, but if you or just use a computer, which everybody does, this will help you. It's called How to Automate Your Business, but it shows you all the little tips and tricks that are free and cheap that I use to handle 100,000 subscribers and 65,000 customers. So it's called How to Automate Your Business. So you go to screwthecommute.com/automate free, and we sell it for $27, but it's yours free because of Genesis being so unique. She's 1 out of 479 just in 2020.
Thank you so much. And all of your information will be in the show notes. Listeners and viewers, you just heard the guy next door, AKA the American entrepreneur, Tom Antion, and make sure you connect with him. For those of you listening to the podcast, don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. We can be found on 40+ platforms. And for our video content, follow us on YouTube at Gems with Genesis Amaris Kemp for all things video content. And until we chat next time, peace, love, and lots of blessings. Have yourself an amazing day. Remember, you can do anything you put your mind to. You are an asset, not a liability, and the world needs you to be authentically you, because you were uniquely created for such a time as this, and no one else has your fingerprints. So why live in the shadows of somebody else when you could create your own imprints that will drive impacts for future generations to come? Ciao.